Hey Hawks, this is Father Kevin Gillespie, and you're listening to Sports and Rants with Brett and Pants. The Hawk will never die.
And we are on live with former Heisman Trophy winner Eric Crouch. How are you doing today, Eric?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you guys for calling me and having me on your show.
Oh, it's great talking to a former Heisman Trophy winner. So what are your thoughts on this past college football championship?
Well, I think that I think most people were surprised. I know I was, in the fact that Ohio State was able to go in and play so strong at the end of the season with their third-team quarterback. And I think that he was a player that had to stay focused. Cardale Jones had to. At the beginning of the year, when he was sitting at third-team quarterback, had to really remain with a clear mind and ambitious about getting in and playing. And I think when JT got in, Bartlett, and did what he did, I think that injury, he had to step in. He didn't really have a choice, and his team rallied around him. Had great coaches. I mean, Urban Meyer kept him very confident and poised that last run in the season, and they looked so smooth. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott, the running back, looked extremely explosive and determined, to get every single yard every time he had the football in his hand. So I was extremely impressed. I think the Oregon, the Ducks have had a great run, and I was kind of pulling, obviously for a Heisman winner to come out with a victory, but he still played well and should be proud of the season and career that he's had.
Did you see yourself in any of the players that were out there, either Cardale or Mariota?
When I was out in New York. When I was in New York, you're asking?
Yes. When you had experiences with both players, could you just explain their play style, how it compared to yours?
Well, I think the game that I played at the time, we were running more focused towards option football, whereas the game has changed quite a bit, and a lot of things are almost everything's out of the shotgun, and it's rare that you see a lot under center anymore. But I think their style of play, where both quarterbacks had great speed. Mariota throws a very accurate throw and catchable ball. I really like what he does in regards to his footwork and his patience and protecting the football. I think that's one of the most important things you can have as a quarterback. So for Mariota's side of the ball, a very poised quarterback, smooth in the pocket, has a very good pocket awareness. Cardale Jones, on the other hand, inexperienced, but was able to come out and show his talent and his ability. A very strong physical player with good speed, and also throws the ball very well, makes good decisions. And I think with the little experiences that he had, I think that was all surprising to all of us to sit back and watch that unfold.
You mentioned about the option offense. What about the option offense made it so successful for you at Nebraska?
Well, I think great coaches and a good strength program. Running the option is a physical game. It's a physical style of play. It's attacking for 4 quarters, and you pound it in your head that you're going to be physically punishing for 4 quarters for 60 minutes, and so today's game is a little bit different, but it's still a physical football game, and I think that's the key, is that you have to spend time in the off season and during the season to continue to work on your strength and your cardiovascular, because you want to be the best physically conditioned team at the end of the year. We are always running 5 and 10 gassers at the end of practices. We'd have a really tough practice, and then the next thing you know, coaches were calling up us on the line to run gassers, and that you're already gassed, and you're at the end of practice here on a Thursday, and here you are running gassers again. So I think that was one of the main reasons why we were able to go well and deep into that fourth quarter with a lot of confidence and our ability to not get tired and be able to run the same almost style that we ran in the first quarter and have that type of energy throughout the game.
Was the option offense first introduced to you at Nebraska? Was it anywhere?
No, that's a great question, though. I mean, I think one of the reasons why I ended up in Nebraska is because I was born and raised here in Nebraska from Omaha, and I went to a high school program where it was 90% focused on running option football. We ran G option, we pulled guards, we ran lead option, wall option, triple option. These were all things I was learning at 14 years old. And I was working on that footwork. I was, in the mesh point with the fullbacks and getting working, hours a day on pitch relationship with your running backs and just the feel with your fullback when you're reading a 3 technique or a 5 technique and who to pitch off of and what your levels are. And knowing that when you snap the ball, you already know pre-read who you're pitching the ball off of. And I think that's extremely important as you get to some college levels and you didn't have that experience in high school, that it makes it harder. You don't get till probably your end of your sophomore year, into your junior year before you really start to feel comfortable with those things. And I felt very comfortable running this offense as a freshman.
So what at Nebraska made your time so special, and what led you to become that great player, great college football player, and led you to that Heisman Trophy? Was it good coaching? Was it the style of offense fit you well?
I think it's a little bit of everything. Like I mentioned before, I think coming from a background that was able to lay the groundwork on just being confident and knowing that that you come from one of the best high school programs in the country when it comes to option-based and the knowledge of the coaching staff. And then having the opportunity to play at a place like Nebraska where you have a strength and conditioning program like they have and a nutritional program like they have. And then on top of that, just to top it off, the great coaches that are there. Turner Gill, that played at Nebraska, played in national championships, was at the Heisman Trophy ceremony. And so I had a ton of experience with the coaches, and I think that helped, just put me at ease and gave me more confidence that I was getting, the right teaching. And, that you're playing for Nebraska. If you look at the history and the tradition that the Huskers had previously, and that run that they had in the 90s was one that will probably never be matched. I mean, it'll be difficult to do. And so just the history of Nebraska and going into a program like that with the rich tradition and the great coaches, it was a bonus. But, I mean, I think as an individual, you have to look at, deep down inside and say, well, I mean, this is what everybody's given right now. We've got 180 guys given the same opportunity to get better, and I think I just really focused on wanting to be the best player that I could for our team and try to make the players and the coaches, better around me and just do the right things. I mean, I put a lot of extra time in, watching tape and film and, throwing the football and working on option and working on getting more flexible and working on speed and strength. So if you put all those things together, it's a pretty nice recipe for success.
Something we don't see very often today in college football especially is the position changes. You played a little wide receiver, a little running back, I would say, quarterback. Why do you think college football has changed to the point where everybody now has a set position rather than what you did?
Well, I think that maybe there's a couple of things, and I think that they're trying to run so many plays. I think the conditioning factor, and you're training for that one position, and each position now can be a little bit more dynamic, that they're using the whole entire field. So maybe there's a set or formation that where not so much you're a running back, but kind of you're like in between, like a slot and a running back, and they can motion you out to receiver and try to create space and plays for you. So really, I think the play calling has gotten much more sophisticated in the way that they're not huddling up and signaling and calling plays in, and getting up to the line and doing different things to confuse defenses. Herb Street said it several times during that championship game is, Oregon's, living off the, trying to make illusions and force you to think that they're doing something different when they're really not. And I think that with the offenses today, you can get a lot of that, and you can, run a certain player to different spots on the field. And so you really don't have to say, well, he's playing receiver, but they don't play running back, and gosh, they got wildcat formations. They're snapping it directly to the tailback. There's all kinds of things. They motion it and snap it to a slot. So, I mean, there's just a lot of creative things going on now in college football that, 15, 20 years ago weren't happening.
What was the whole, NFL draft process like for you as a kid coming out of college? What was the experience like for you?
Well, it was a fun experience. It was difficult at times. I think I remember the first thing that stuck out was I had a scout that met with me, after my season was over with, and they were doing these interviews at the Combine. I think I met with 23 NFL teams, scouts, coaches, personnel, GMs, head coaches, while invited at the Combine. And first question, I sat down with, I can't remember the team. This actually might have been before I got to the Combine, but they were making comments about how, hey, we heard that, you're abusing women and things of that nature. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing from these scouts. And so I think right away they challenge you with something maybe that's off the wall, or maybe they truly did hear something that's not true, so they're gonna challenge you with the question and see what your reaction is. So a lot of times, there's things that are taking place, not just on the physical side, but also on the mental side. The NFL is, they know that you can play the game. It's about the mental capacity to be able to withstand, verbal abuse from coaches and players and media, and then putting you in awkward situations that you're not used to see what type of person you truly are and how you're going to react to those certain situations. We waited in line for 4 or 5 hours to do our Wonderlic test, and then you turn around and wait in another 4-hour line to find out at the end of the line you're running a 40, or you wait in a 2-hour line to wait to find out that it's lunchtime now. So they have all this anticipation of waiting around, not really knowing what you're doing, to try to. I think the coaches are walking by, and you might be getting edgy and irritated with the process. So they want to see, how you're going to withhold, how strong you are mentally of things that are happening around you that you're not used to, because really that is the game of football. You come to a game day on Sunday or Saturday, and a whole new defense is thrown at you. How are you going to react? And so I think that they're really looking at things like that, just because it's a big investment for them. They're investing millions of dollars in players, and it's important to these programs, these teams, these coaches that they get the right player that they're looking for.
Now, going into the draft, did you have any expectations what round you were going to go into, what team you were going to go to? Did anyone seem interested in you?
Yeah, actually, there were several teams, but some teams wanted me as a quarterback. Some teams wanted me as a receiver. Some said you're going to play safety. And so, I was working with my agent at the time, and he had a pretty good idea that the Rams wanted me sometime in the first or the second or third round. So I knew that I was probably going to be going in there based on what he was telling me. And I ended up being a third-round, pick as a receiver for the Rams, and I found out, a year after that, because I had, things didn't work out for me in St. Louis with playing receiver, but I did get claimed off waivers that following year in 2003 to Green Bay. Well, I didn't realize that Green Bay wanted to draft me as a quarterback in the 4th round, because if I would have known those things, if they would have came to my agent with that type of, information, then I probably would have told St. Louis, guys, sorry, you might want to draft somebody else in the 3rd round as a receiver, because I got an opportunity to play quarterback. So there's, I think the lesson learned after all that is that, regardless of what you think is going to happen in the NFL or what position you may play, you really got to follow your heart. And I think there's players every year that have an opportunity to change positions or listen to NFL personnel about what they think the best position is for you. But I think in the end, if you make the choice based on, in your heart what you want to play and what you believe to be comfortable for yourself, I don't think you can go wrong. Maybe it doesn't work out, but at least you're telling yourself and staying true to what you believe.
It sounds as if you leaned more towards preferring to play the quarterback position. Would you say so?
Yeah, I did. I mean, that's what I grew up playing. I loved that position. I mean, I grew up watching, John Elway and Kosar and Montana and, Kelly and Randall Cunningham and just, basically that 83 draft in the NFL. So I was just, I mean, how could you watch NFL football, be a fan, and not want to play quarterback after watching all those guys, And so, for me, I just, it was just a dream of mine to play that position, and I loved it, and it was so much fun. I mean, calling plays and being competitive and distributing the football and being a leader out there on the team, and taking credit for the wins and also taking credit for the losses, and it was a fun ride. And I battled a little bit with going overseas and playing safety, and then going to the CFL and trying to stay healthy. Played 2 years of quarterback up there, and then went on to the United Football League, the UFL, and and had my first start as a pro quarterback in 2011. So I waited all those years to finally get my chance, and then end up getting hurt again. So, really, I think it's a mixture of having a little bit of luck on your side and staying healthy along the way. So that's kind of what my battle was with playing pro football.
One thing we have noticed when you were coming out for the draft, the quarterback position was more seen as a pocket passer position. Mm-hmm. Now we're seeing it more moving towards using the option, speed guys out there. Do you think you would have fit better in today's NFL?
I do. I think that as a running quarterback, a run pass quarterback, a dual threat, I think I still was kind of looked at as I was looked at as a running back more because we didn't throw a ton. So I think for someone to really want to draft me, they had to believe in what they saw, pre-draft and the workouts and things of that nature. So it wasn't that I couldn't throw the football. It's just that I never had that much of an opportunity to do it. So I think the players or the personnel, scouts and things of that came out and would take notes on me throwing the football. There was no question whether I had a strong enough arm or an accurate arm or could do it in a game. It was just that someone had to be willing to take that chance to kind of groom me along and starting to read coverages, cover 2, Tampa, 3, 4, picking up zone blitzes, knowing where to go with the ball. That didn't happen for me until I got to the CFL, because that's truly when I started to read coverages and throw the football on a 75% basis up, and it's a throwing game.
Now, could you just go into how frustrating that was for you as a guy that wanted to play quarterback coming out of college, but you weren't, like you said, weren't actually given the opportunity to show off your arm, show off your skill level? We see that today with the NFL players like Tim Tebow, Terrell Pryor, never really given the opportunity to show off what they could do.
Yeah. Well, I think you just got to, things happen for a reason, but it was frustrating. But I couldn't stay healthy. I mean, wasn't that I wasn't given a complete opportunity. I mean, early on in my career, I would say that I had plenty of opportunities, and plus I made a couple of mistakes, things that I would do differently if I could go back. If hindsight was 20/20, I would look back and do a couple things differently, but I think the biggest and important thing is that you know that if you truly want something, that you can work hard enough to accomplish it, and you just got to keep trying. Sometimes you get knocked down, and that builds character to continue to try. I mean, ever since 2002, I got knocked down, for 10 years straight and continued to try to push through and work out when I wasn't on a team and didn't have a strength and nutritioning program with me. Those were things that you had to do outside because you didn't have those resources. So it makes it even more of a challenge to continue to try to stay in shape and be ready when you're called upon for a workout or you get signed by a pro football team. So, some guys would have just said, you know what, after it cut a couple times, they would have said, I'm done. But, I had that, that bug still. I still wanted to play, and I didn't ever want to look back and say, gosh, what if I would have just tried? But I kind of know now, I tried. I gave it everything. I played in 5 different leagues, 6 different teams. I was around. I learned a lot about strength and conditioning, different programs. I learned a lot about offense and defense and different schemes and blocking and blitzes and reading coverages. So my football knowledge, became are more broad and more focused on different positions, and it helps me into my broadcasting career now that I've been doing that for 3 years, working calling college football games. I think that's been a huge asset for me in being able to educate people when I'm calling a game.
Something that we find unique is that you actually had the opportunity to play in NFL Europe, as you were discussed previously.
In quite a few different leagues.
Yeah. Could you just go into detail about how different the culture is in those leagues?
Well, they're different because, guys are fighting for positions just to go to training camp. It wasn't like you had a contract and, you were, signed, to that 53-man roster. I mean, you made a team over in Europe, and you had to, fight for an invitation to training camp. So these were just opportunities. So if you had great tape, if you played well, then you had really an opportunity to come to a training camp and continue to work. The culture was very competitive. Players were out there to try to win a job and try to get looked at to make an NFL team. So, there were some guys over there with tremendous abilities and talent, but didn't want to work. Decided that maybe going out and partying every single night was maybe the route to go. But there were some other guys that took it more serious, and than others. And we had great resources for coaches, and it was a great way to evaluate talent and look at guys that were on the bubble that had a lot of talent and ability. That some of those guys went on to play great in the NFL and have great careers, and it was a fun experience for me. Although it didn't work out when I got sent over there with the Chiefs, that I did get other opportunities to play quarterback in other leagues.
As we're wrapping up here, it really does seem your title, as you're introduced anywhere, would be how you won the Heisman Trophy. Did that bring any unwarranted fame about how people would come up to you, or do you have any unique stories about how people come up to you asking for an autograph or anything like that?
Well, I think of just about every day. I think your life changes considerably, and I think you start to realize that year after year. It's been, I want to say 14, going on 14 years now, and since I won that award, and so each year, it seems to be more valuable. Where you continue to the trophy continues to warrant success, and it's a tremendous individual award. I look at it as one of the greatest team awards because football is a team sport. I mean, there's no way to go around it. You have players playing defense, special teams, the kicking game. You got your linemen, your running backs. Everyone's trying to play together, and so it really is a tremendous team award. Although it's one guy stands up and accepts it that night. So, but there's plenty of stories. I mean, it's just the fact of the matter is that. You are a Heisman Trophy winner for life, and you're part of a history of tradition and famous players that either one go on to have great success in the NFL, or maybe some go on and have great success in the NBA. Maybe some stop, and don't have that opportunity, but become successful business owners or politicians or what have you. I mean, there's just a lot of different avenues and a lot of different guys, personality-wise, that come out of that group. So it's just fun to be a part of it. I enjoy going back every year to New York, welcoming the new winner, meeting new guys, and continuing relationships with the previous winners that I've met in the past.
All right, Eric, thank you for joining us. It was great looking back on your career, and we appreciate your time.
Yeah, you bet. Anytime. I had a great time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This concludes our podcast of Sports and Rants with Brett and Pants. Thank you for listening. Please follow us on Twitter at Sports and Rants. Like us on Facebook. Remember to subscribe to us on iTunes. And visit our website, www.sportsandrantz.blogspot.com. It would help our rankings on iTunes if you rate and review our podcast. Thanks, and have a good day.